Praise the Lord. I am so thankful for this opportunity to stand before you. It is such an honor for me to be here. My topic for today is based off the theme of this conference, which is called The Hill of Righteousness. But before we go into that, I want to start off with an activity because we are just getting comfortable. We're all here. We're all at this conference. So we're going to start with something called Holla If. So give me a second. Okay, so I want to get a feel for the room. And if you're from New York, I'm sure you've heard of holla before. Has everyone here heard hollas before? Yeah? Yeah, okay, we're going to get the energy level up a little bit. Okay, so this activity is stolen from a really talented teacher friend of mine, and to get a feel for the room, she would have people holla if a statement related to them. So first, holla if you're here at NACOG 2019. Everyone, that was not as loud as it should have been, but I'll take it for now. Okay, holla if you drove here today. I feel bad for all you people. Okay, holla if you took a plane here. Holla. Okay, holla if you think New York City is the best city in the U.S. Okay, our New York people were pretty loud, so I think it's right, you know. So, as you can tell, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a high school special education teacher and speaker and blogger. You can follow at brownlikecurry.com if you want. And I know that name is really extra, but yes. Okay, so now that we're acquainted, I actually need your advice for something. We're going to have another activity. How would you react to the situation that I'm presenting to you? You make a new friend who's visiting for the summer. This friend has old money from abroad and lots of cash to burn. This friend dresses in designer clothing, so Balenciaga, all that fancy stuff, stays at a fancy hotel, and anytime you go to eat, they don't let you pay. They cover it every single time. You guys are all like, oh, I need that friend. So this friend wants to go on a trip, but they don't want to go alone, and they're really rich and have lots of money, so they're going to pay for you. So assuming your Desi parents, or if you are a parent, assuming your husband or wife allows you to, do you say yes? Oh, there's a little bit of hesitation here. Okay, you guys are smart. Okay, so I want you all to meet Anna Delvey. How many of you have heard this story before? Raise your hand if you've heard of Anna. My mom has heard it because I already went through the sermon with her, but so you guys are going to see something new. So she was booked into the Howard Deluxe. That cost about $400 a night, and she was staying there weeks at a time. So you can imagine how much money she had. She'd often walk around, give $100 tips to people, like the people who take the bags for her, who do anything for her. She seemed like she had a lot of money. So everyone thought she had money, but everyone had different ideas, like different reasons why they thought she had money. They thought she had old family money. They thought that her father was a diplomat in Russia. And other people thought that her dad was an old industry oil tycoon. So she did what a lot of you guys were almost willing to do. She went on a trip with her friend. And she told her friend, don't worry about it. I'll pay for the whole bill. Just come with me and have a good time. But once they got to the hotel, Anna's credit card wasn't working. And her friend was confused. Why is this really rich person's credit card not working? What's happening? And the hotel said, listen, maybe it's because Anna's coming from abroad. Just give us your credit card to have on hold. We won't charge you. And once everything gets fixed up, you'll be fine. But what ended up happening was she went back to New York City, and this friend who only made $60,000 a year ended up with a tab of $62,000 on her credit card because she believed the illusion of wealth that Anna Delvey had. The point that I like to make here with this story is appearances are deceiving. This woman looked like she had so much wealth, so much influence, so much power, and she tricked hotels, she tricked banks into giving her money. Anna's story is about the appearance of wealth, that in our society people can have an appearance of righteousness. Let's turn our Bibles to Psalms 24 and look at verses 3 through 4. It reads, "Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god." Man has a particular way of measuring righteousness, don't we? Yeah. Never missing a single church meeting. You're that person there for the 10 a.m., not 10 a.m., it's like 2 a.m. Terry meeting. You tithe exactly 10%. You don't listen to secular music. You wear clear nail polish, or better yet, no nail polish at all. And God's measure of righteousness, as we look at that verse, was so different. It says, clean hands, pure heart, not trusting an idol, and not swearing by a false god. It's so simple. So in our culture, especially within the Malayali Pentecostal community, it can become so easy to confuse a reputation of righteousness with an actual pure heart. And in reality, our very choice to follow God can often lead to a loss of reputation. But if our culture only praises people who look a certain way or appear a certain way, then how can we make the choice to follow God when that can lead to a loss of our reputation? To man, Joseph appeared unholy. So when you're thinking of Joseph, you're thinking of that dude with like the coat with lots of different colors. That's what you're thinking of when you think of Joseph. And when you look at the chapter, Genesis 39, Potiphar brought Joseph down to Egypt. And because the Lord was with Joseph, everything he did prospered, including Potiphar. So Joseph found favor in Potiphar's eyes because of how well things were going. And Potiphar left everything into Joseph's care because of this. So for a little while, Potiphar thought highly of Joseph, and that must have been great. Potiphar thinks highly of him, things seem really amazing. But this was until Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. Genesis 39, 11 through 12, and then let's look at verses 16 through 18. So let's turn our Bibles here for a moment. Genesis 39, let's look at those verses. If you're there, say amen. Amen. Oh, you guys are all there. You guys are so fast. Okay. One day he went to the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. She kept his cloak beside her until the master came home. Then she told him this story. "The Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make a sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." So I'm sure growing up in the church, most of you guys have heard the story before, you're already aware of it. But in this moment, Joseph was framed. On the outside, how did Joseph appear? I'm very interactive, so I need to hear your voice. How did Joseph appear? He appeared guilty. Yeah, he left something at the actual scene of the evidence. He, from the outside looking in, maybe in our community, would be hearing a story about someone or something that happened, and all the evidence can make them look unholy. But Joseph did not care about disappointing Potiphar's wife. He cared about disappointing God. Amen, right? Amen. Genesis 39, verse 9 reads, "No, this is Joseph's words in a moment where Potiphar's wife is trying to seduce him, trying to make him do something that he does not want to do. And in that moment, this was his thought process. He says, 'No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you.'" So his master is Potiphar, and he has had nothing withheld from him except Potiphar's wife. "Because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" So in that moment, his thought process was not, okay, like, what are other people going to think of me? What's going to happen? But no, how can I do something that would allow me to sin against God? So what if Joseph's worth was in what Potiphar's wife thought of him or what Potiphar thought of him? Then what would happen when Potiphar's feelings for him changed? So despite what the world thinks, God knows who is righteous. And even in prison, God was with Joseph. Genesis 39, 20, verse B through 23 says, "But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did." So Joseph understood that rather than chasing after the success of people or his master or his master's wife, he was choosing to rest his success in God, the God who always was with him and always allowed him to flourish and prosper wherever he was. Jesus disappointed people. This was actually something that I learned by reading this book. It's Emotionally Healthy Spirituality Day by Day. You go day by day and you read different stories. And I think that when you think of Jesus, you know he's someone who never sinned. You know he never did any wrong. He was holy man and holy God. But we forget that in order to be who he was sent down to earth to be, he disappointed people. People didn't want a God who looked like Jesus. So in response to being who God created him to be, he had to disappoint others. So the crowds wanted an earthly Messiah who feed them, fix their problems, overthrow the Roman oppressors, work miracles, and give inspiring sermons. But this was not who Jesus was. His focus was on other things. Jesus disappointed religious leaders who did not like his theology and finally put him on a cross. In what ways do we say no to Jesus in fear of disappointing each other or other people or our parents or our culture? We're afraid of coming short of the ideals of our society. Do we take jobs we never wanted? There was a brief period of time when I was in high school where I thought maybe I'd want to be a doctor or something like that, and I quickly realized the only reason why I liked medicine was how it looked like to other people. And that's an issue. And I'm not the only person who thinks this way. Apparently, according to Inc.com, more than 70% of workers, that means in this row, there's 10 people, 7 of you have done this, say that they're not satisfied with their career choice. And we actually have a serious epidemic on our hands. And one reason for job dissatisfaction is because of something called praise addiction. Okay, when you guys were kids, how many of you guys liked getting the sticker from your teacher? Like, yeah, we all like that sticker. I teach high schoolers, they fight each other for a sticker, and they're literally 15, 16 years old, but they will fight for that, and they want the grades, they want to appear a certain way. And we do the same thing sometimes in our careers. We choose something or go for something or get something in our career just because of what it looks like to other people rather than what God may actually be wanting you to do. We've been trained to seek out incentives like good grades and stickers, and because of this, we end up in jobs that we don't like. We incur debt to be able to afford certain lifestyles to look good to other people. So according to CNBC.com, 1 in 8 Americans is willing to take $1,000 or more in debt in order to depict an extravagant lifestyle to other people. And about 70% of Americans are in debt. So again, look at your row. There's 10 people. 7 people in that row would be in debt because they want to portray a certain lifestyle to other people. So we look at these different statistics and we see these different things about the types of people who are not righteous. Then who exactly is righteous and what exactly is our measure of being righteous? And I think the best way to look at that is to look at a parable. So here we see a Pharisee. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even the tax collector. I fast twice a week and give 1/10 of all I got. So that's like the example we heard early on, right? Like the person who goes, he is giving 1/10 of his money. He appears very righteous. What do you guys think? Is he righteous? You guys are so smart. You're like, no, I already know he's not righteous. So in this moment, we see that he's appearing righteous. He's standing in front of other people. He's comparing himself to others. Like, look at what I'm doing and look at what other people do. He mentions everything that he has done. And the reason why the gospel is so amazing is then we look at the tax collector. And does anyone here like paying their taxes? No one has ever liked paying their taxes. This has been true since back when this happened. So the tax collector was not a position that people liked. And verse 13 says, but the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven. He beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, for I am a sinner. So this man instead, in juxtaposition with the Pharisee, he stands at a distance. He doesn't mention anything he's done or tries to show God that I'm worthy or enough or I've accomplished something, but he asks for mercy. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified. Justified means to prove something, to show something to be right or reasonable. He went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves before me will be exalted. So when I read this passage at first, I was like Thomas the train. I was really confused. Like, what was so wrong about what the Pharisee did? Like, it didn't seem like it was that bad. But ultimately, there's something wrong with the Pharisee, and there's also something wrong with all of us at times. The problem ultimately was his motive in what he did. The question is, why did the Pharisee pray? And why did the tax collector pray? Everything the Pharisee says is ultimately to uplift himself. Even when he was praying, he should have been submitting himself to God, but he was worried about what the other people around him were looking at him. The tax collector, instead, when he prays to submit himself before God and to submit his wrongs before God. Okay. So the question here is, are we looking for the praise of men or of God? Because Anna's friend, and you guys are all smarter than Anna's friend, a lot of you guys said no to that situation, because Anna's friend believed that illusion of wealth, her friend ended up with a bill for $62,000 that Anna never paid her back for. I heard she actually gave $5,000, but $62,000, $5,000, it's not really what you want back, right? So when we instead chase the approval of men rather than God, we live the lives of people that people want for us, rather than being whoever it is that God created you to be. For a long time, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but the prevailing thought in my mind was, what will people think? What will people think of me? And actually, 2 years ago during NACOG, I was asked to speak for a women's panel. And I was petrified because panels really scare me, but I didn't want to say no, because I don't like saying no to things, so I said yes. But it was almost time to go for that panel, and I was so terrified, and I literally, I was so scared because I was worried about what other people would think of me. And Chelsea was actually on the panel with me. I was so worried about looking nervous or looking unqualified or just other people's opinions of me. And so, to give you a visual, it was like a grand ballroom, and there were maybe 30 people there. There wasn't even that many people, but for whatever reason, I was so nervous. And I went to the bathroom right before, and I started crying because I just was so afraid of how I looked to other people or what I would appear like, and I just really didn't want to do the panel. And in a moment, I felt God saying to me, whose opinion matters to you more? Is it the opinion of those people there, or is it my opinion? Come on, man. So I decided to go, and I was like, you know what? I don't care if I disappoint people or if I look strange or whatever, because if God's asking me to do this, I want to do it. Yeah. And I went, and it was actually pretty amazing. And I think that's something amazing about God, because He invites us and calls us to do things. And the lives that He wants for us are amazing. And the reason why 70% of people who chose the other stuff is not happy is because they weren't created to do those things that they're doing. And if you live in the calling and the purpose that God has for you, even when it is scary, then you're going to be living your life in such a peace and serenity, because God intends so much good for us. So the question I have for you today is, whose opinion matters to you more? The opinion of God or of men? And the statement I'd like to leave with you is, I'd rather upset people than upset God. May God bless you with these words.